Sentenced to be Hero was published as a light novel in October 2020 with an adaptation from Studio Kai, airing in January 2026 for the winter season. It follows Xylo Forbats, a man sentenced to be a hero, a form of punishment that involves serving in a military unit whose sole purpose is to be thrown into the front lines battling all kinds of demons and creatures. And if you die, you are brought back to life to do it all over again, an endless cycle of misery. There's a lot to talk about in this show, the production, the animation. It's all fantastic from the few episodes we have seen. It's got a pretty good rating on Mal if you care about that sort of thing, but I want to talk about the show a bit more generally because I think it has a pretty interesting take on a question stories like these have asked hundreds of times before. Stories about heroes are pretty common, superhero movies and shows are huge, and if you break down a lot of those stories, they kind of do the same thing. Outside of defeating some big bad, a lot of them ask the same fundamental question. What does it take to be a hero? The Batman, Iron Man, Superman, that's like the core of those movies. Sentenced to be Hero is no different. It's asking, what does it take to be a hero, but with a dark fantasy twist? Because the author of the story takes something that a lot of these stories grapple with and brings it to the forefront. Mainly that if you take away the glitz and glamour of being a hero, it kind of sucks. It takes sacrifice, putting others before yourself, all without the promise of a reward. And if you're forced into a situation like that, yeah, that kind of seems like a punishment. But not only is Xylo forced into that situation, he's actively looked down upon because of it. I don't think I've seen that before. It's a pretty unique take on the hero trope. However, Xylo still falls within the tradition of a typical hero. He's a righteous man who did something bad for the sake of the greater good. So what we have here is a good man forced to do good but is maligned for it. And I find that interesting because of what that means for the question, what does it take to be a hero? I'll frame it this way. Superman is seen as a hero because he does good things. He stands for truth and justice. He's the embodiment of righteousness, a servant of the people. That's what makes him a hero. But Sentenced to be Hero seems to argue, no, that's not enough. Because no matter what Superman does, no matter how much he sacrifices himself, you have to ask, is he still a hero in a world that's all Lex Luthor's? Filled with people that see him as a villain for no real reason, they just sort of hate him for the love of the game. Now you can say yes to that, but to me, the show seems to suggest that perception is just as important to the question of what does it take to be a hero as the actions someone takes. Is heroism innate or is it perceived? Honestly, that's a pretty cynical take on heroism, but I imagine that a lot of what Sentenced to be Hero will be about as the story moves forward is changing people's perception. I don't think this will be a story about redemption. Xylo doesn't need to redeem himself, he was always in the right. I think Sentenced to be Hero will be about the world changing how it sees people like Xylo, because that's what it will take for him to be the hero he always was. But those are just my quick thoughts on the show. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And for my regular viewers, let me know what you think of this format. I'm trying to experiment with shorter, more timely videos since my normal essays take forever to make. I'll still make those longer essays, I just want to diversify, so we'll see how this goes. Also, let me know what shows you're watching that you'd like my thoughts on. This is the perfect way for me to cover more stuff. But that's it from me. As always, thank you for watching, and thank you to the fine patrons you see here for supporting the channel. If you want to support the channel too, you can do so for as little as $1. I have more stuff planned, so subscribe if you want to see that, but until then, I'll see you in the next one. Shoots.